Now, we often hear the phrase, in the comfort of your own home. And these days, most of us enjoy a safe, clean place to live. But it wasn't very long ago that, in parts of Birmingham, those conditions were a distant dream.
Well, using news footage from our own library, the Media Archive for Central England has released a DVD telling the fascinating story of how the second city's second-class housing was brought up to scratch. Andy Bevan has been taking a look.
In 2013, this is one of Birmingham's most popular attractions, the back-to-back houses. They look like a throwback to Victorian times, and they are. But people in this city were still living in places like this in the 1970s, until the city fathers set about regenerating Birmingham. Watching this 1947 travelogue on the second city, you'd never know that those back-to-back slums were just out of the camera's range. Everything in Birmingham's gardens seemed rosy, and the weeds were kept well out of sight.
Birmingham has always made a big thing of its municipal housing scheme. 50,000 houses were built by 1939.
But those cramped and damp houses were there all right, with social and public health problems all of their own. The DVD hears from local historians who know only too well what inner-city Brummies had to endure.
In the early 1840s, there were reports, national reports, people like Robert Slaney, the MP for Shrewsbury, looking at the problem of badly built back-to-backs, wanting them banned as early as the 1840s. They weren't banned nationally until 1909.
Redevelopment.
In the mid-1950s, Herbert Manzoni, the city engineer, embarked on a programme of demolishing and rebuilding parts of inner-city Birmingham. The back-to-backs started to come down, slowly. But even in 1971, in the Borsall Heath area, a few dozen remained.
I've got rats, mice, beetles, damp. They're just not fit to live in.
So I've got 7 children in 2 rooms, 2 bedrooms, and me and my husband as well, because we can't use the other rooms.
As the back-to-backs were coming down, Birmingham's city centre was going up, high up. The iconic circular structure of the Rotunda was taking shape. Another circle in the form of the inner ring road began to appear. And although not circular, the new Bullring shopping centre, which replaced the old market hall, wrapped itself around the centre of town. It was accessible on foot, by train, and of course by car, although one wonders just how this brainwave of a parking solution could ever have worked in practice.
Meanwhile, your car is taken by lift to the multi-storey car park above, and they'll bring it back to you again when you need it, ready to drive away.
So Birmingham, to the planners at least, was idyllic once again, and modern too. But what the city architects couldn't have foreseen was the whole catalogue of new problems that their high-rise havens would create. With some of them stretching more than 20 stories up, they were virtual prisons for young mums with small children. Older folks struggled when the lifts were broken, and the stairwells were often a haven for drinkers and drug addicts. This ITV Today item from 1977 demonstrates just how the isolation of high-rise living took a tragic toll on one resident.
The strain of life up there on the 11th floor had become altogether too much for Mrs. Hibbard. 12 days ago, Pamela Hibbard, who was 26, leapt from the balcony, and she took with her her 2-year-old son, her eldest child, Richard. The 120-foot drop killed them both.
The regeneration of Birmingham had its success stories too, though. In the newly created suburb of Lee Bank, the blocks were built much lower. Trees were brought in from the south of England to green the place up. Local schoolchildren were on hand to help plant them and record their progress for classroom projects. And there were play areas well away from traffic, all courtesy of Birmingham Council. Today, a couple of trees from that recreation area are still here. In fact, the play facilities themselves are still here, although much upgraded. And yes, a couple of the tower blocks remain over the way. But Lee Bank is now Park Central, low-rise, low-density housing, and not one of these properties is council-owned. The DVD concludes with some images of Birmingham today. Modern, stylish, an international destination. There may not be that valet parking at the new Bullring, itself approaching its 10th anniversary now, but those home necessities like heating and sanitation are now the norm. Regenerating Birmingham has been a long process, and it's still underway. But at least now, spending time in these last remaining back-to-back houses is just a leisurely day out, rather than a miserable existence. Andy Bevan, ITV News.
What a great look back.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
The back-to-backs is a good afternoon out as well. I think the one at the end is a sweet shop, like an old stylish sweet shop.
Have you been in?
My kids have spent hours in there. But anyway,
Yeah,
all
sounds
good.
to me like you didn't pull them out very quickly.
No. Absolutely. You can get them in quarters. It's brilliant. Don't forget, by the way, you can have a look back at all 3 of Andy Bevan's media archive reports featured on our programme this week on our website, itv.com/central, as ever, is where you go to see that.
Now, still to come.